On July the 1st, 2020, Israel will have the green light to declare sovereignty over the Jewish settlements that have been built in the West Bank since 1967. Many are predicting apocalyptic outcomes if Israel goes forward with its plan. Others say it will change nothing at all. We'll tell you what will actually happen on this edition of End of the Age. On July the 10th and 11th, we are hosting our first ever online prophecy weekend, an exclusive digital event series to give you hope in the end time. Dave and I will be sharing how what we're seeing in the news lines up with end time Bible prophecy. We'll be covering exclusive details in each session. The 2-day, 4-session online event will be free to all End of the Age Plus subscribers, or you can register for just $35. This is a perfect opportunity for you to enjoy a streamed conference on your own with a small group, or you can even view it with your entire church. Go to endtime.com/OPW to register or subscribe to End of the Age Plus and get free access to the online prophecy weekend. Well, the last couple of days have been very exciting because people have been coming to the White House to meet together on a huge prophetic question. Now, they probably don't know it's prophetic, but Jared Kushner was there. Mike Pompeo, our Secretary of State, was there. Also, Avi Berkowitz, who is the assistant to Jared Kushner, was there. Mr. David Friedman, our ambassador from the U.S. to Israel, was also present. And they are discussing exactly the form that Israel should take if they decide on July the 1st or shortly thereafter to go ahead and declare sovereignty over these settlements out in the West Bank. Now, to set the stage so we can all understand it, there were no Jews in the West Bank prior to the 1967 war. Jordan had occupied that territory for the last 19 years and had totally driven all Jews out. There were none there. However, after the 67 war, the Arabs did not want to negotiate. Consequently, Jews began to move into the area, which was mostly vacant, and they built homes, which then became settlements, which then grew into towns and then grew into cities. So today, here we are, 53 years later, there were something like 850,000 Jews now living in this area. The international community has struggled. What do we do with this? If we do get a peace plan, are we going to uproot 850,000 people and make them move back into Israel proper? Now, the stance that's most accepted among the world community is that Israel has to withdraw to the 1967 borders and that Jerusalem must be redivided so that the Palestinians could have their capital in Jerusalem, just like Israel has its capital in Jerusalem. The international community has said Jerusalem should be shared between the two entities. So that's been the position since 1967. There have been a lot of talks. They've all gone nowhere because nobody ever really dealt with the core of the problem. That is until President Trump came along. He worked for close to 3 years to put together a peace plan called the Deal of the Century. It was made public on January the 28th of this year. And the Deal of the Century is a total revolutionary approach to peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Of course, President Trump is known for thinking out of the box. Well, he certainly did when he put this deal together, because his plan, by and large, says that no Jew will be forced to live under Palestinian control, and no Palestinian will be forced to live under Jewish control. Now, how do you do that when they're all mingled together out here in the West Bank, which biblically is called Judea and Samaria? Well, between Jared Kushner and President Trump, they came up with a plan where even where the population is mixed, yet the Palestinians in a mixed area would still be under Palestinian rule. The Jews in a mixed area, even in the Palestinian state, would still be Israelis and be under Israeli rule. Well, that's where we are right now. We're going to try to explain it more extensively, because July 1 is when Israel can make its move.
I have left a piece of my heart in Israel and her people. We would like to thank Endtime for doing such an awesome job with our Israel tour. We marvel at your team keeping the time schedule, keeping everyone comfortable, the wonderful driver, the brilliant guide, the entire tour program, good hotel choices, and stellar food. We had the privilege to rub shoulders with Pastor Baxter, listen to his current teachings, and had some interesting questions answered so eloquently. He is wonderful. Helene from Australia.
Experience the Holy Land in the most amazing way. Join Irvin and Judy Baxter for our upcoming Israel tour. For more information, go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, End Time Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have been studying this prophecy that foretells the final 7 years. I've been studying it for many, many years now. Over time, I had analyzed 5 things that had to be contained in a peace agreement. I'm talking about the peace agreement, which the Bible foretells will launch the final 7 years to Armageddon. Well, when President Trump came out with his peace plan, they published it on the White House website. I downloaded it, and then I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, because I was looking for those 5 elements that the Bible says will be contained in this peace agreement that marks the beginning of the final 7 years. Well, as I had my highlighter out and I'm going through this document, one after the other, after the other, after the other, matched perfectly. I was really stunned. I mean, could this be any better? I was shocked. I was amazed, because when President Trump presented this plan on January the 28th of this year, everything came together. And I got real serious about considering whether President Trump's peace plan, which he calls the deal of the century, whether this is the plan that will mark the beginning of the final 7 years, which would mean that you and me and the whole world would enter the final 7 years to Armageddon and the physical return of Jesus Christ to this earth. Well, I have been sitting on the edge of my seat in anticipation ever since. In the document, the date set as the earliest time that Israel can make her decision to move forward is July the 1st of this year, 2020. Now, why is that so important? Because there's no guarantee that President Trump will be reelected. Therefore, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, wants to get this deal done quickly so that it can be solidified and entrenched, and it will not be reversed under future administrations if that might happen. So they set July the 1st, and then Netanyahu negotiated with his co-ruler, Benny Gantz. Right now, Netanyahu's prime minister. In a year and a half, Benny Gantz is going to become prime minister. They're sharing power under this sharing arrangement. So he negotiated a deal when they put together their party platform that they both signed on to. Netanyahu drove it home. We must be able to declare sovereignty over the settlements and over the Jordan Valley. We have to be able to do it after July the 1st. The American elections are coming up November the 3rd, so that would leave us some time. Well, it was written into the agreement. Now here we are, just on the brink of July the 1st. Because of this, the ambassador from the United States to Israel traveled to Washington, D.C. this week, and he was meeting Monday and Tuesday, and I think they're continuing to meet today. They're meeting to discuss, okay, if Israel and Netanyahu go forward with this plan within the next week or two, what are all the ramifications? They also have been working out a map. They've been solidifying exactly where the borders would run, because the settlements are all intertwined with the area that is to become the Palestinian area. So it's a very difficult and intricate thing. That's what they're discussing at our White House today. President Trump, sometime this week apparently, will make the final decision. So these are big times. Now, once that happens, that's going to fulfill part of the prophecy. The other part of the prophecy is the creation of a Palestinian state in the West Bank, which is also known as Judea. It's called Judea in the Bible. When they create this Palestinian state, it's going to be a huge fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And once that's done, that appears to be the trigger that actually launches the final 7 years to Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus. Now, let's analyze the different positions of the people in Israel. There's a lot of arguing. I mean, the media is absolutely full. There are 3 or 4 positions that are listed. Let me just go over those with you. Number 1, Israel should do nothing. Just stick to the status quo, even though the status quo isn't staying status quo because all the populations are growing. Number 2, Israel should only annex large settlements near the city of Jerusalem. And then, number 3, Israel should officially declare sovereignty over all 30% of the West Bank as outlined in the Trump peace plan. And then finally, number 4, Israel should declare sovereignty over all of the West Bank. I mean, there are those Jews in Israel that say, wait, we don't have the freedom to do what we want to do. The Bible tells us what we should do, and it doesn't tell us to establish a Palestinian state. It tells us we must not establish a Palestinian state. Now, I think we owe it to ourselves to look at the scriptures and see what God actually said to Israel when he made the promise to their father Abraham that the place we call the Holy Land would be the land of Israel, the descendants of Abraham forever. The first scripture is Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt in the south unto the great river, the river Euphrates in the north. So that's the first scripture. God said to Abraham, this land will be yours and your descendants after you forever. Now, this promise was made about 4,000 years ago, and yet here we are in 2020, and it's the most debated issue in international politics today. Can you imagine? 4,000 years ago, and yet here we are debating it today. Now let's look at God's instructions to Israel in Numbers 33, 51 through 53. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, their idols, and quite pluck down all their high places. And you shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. Now, the international community says that the Palestinians must have a state in Judea, which is part of the promised land as it was outlined by God to Abraham. And yet, here the command is to Israel by God through Moses, saying you are not to sign any treaty with them. You are to utterly drive them out. Well, as you can see, the more conservative right-wing Israelis, this is the exact stance they're taking. They say, yes, let's go ahead and assert sovereignty over the settlements, but let's not agree to a Palestinian state because we will be going against the commandment of God. There's another scripture that tells us what the penalty for disobedience will be. This is Numbers 33, 55. But if you will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come to pass that those which you let remain of them shall be pricks in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and shall vex you in the land wherein ye dwell. Anybody heard of the Intifada? The first Intifada, the second Intifada? Now they're talking about a third Intifada. Intifada means uprising. There have been thousands of people die because the Palestinians are continually launching attacks upon the nation of Israel. Now God said if you allow them to stay, and Israel did that. In 1967, the Palestinians were in full-scale retreat. And Israel could have just right then possessed all the promised land as defined by God to Abraham, and they would not be dealing with any of this today. But they didn't obey God. And so what did God tell them? If you let them stay amongst you, they are going to be pricks in your eyes. They're going to be thorns in your sides. Has that one ever come true? Well, there's another scripture that tells us about should Israel sign a peace deal with the Palestinians. This is Exodus 23, 32 through 33. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. So here we can see that God gave very explicit instructions, but Israel's not listening. Israel's doing her own thing. Israel is more concerned with pleasing the European Union and the United Nations than with pleasing God. This very interesting article appeared within the last day or so, and I want to share part of it with you. It's entitled, "The Great Myth of Israeli Annexation." The Jewish state is not about to march across any border or claim even an inch of new territory. To the contrary, its footprint in Judea and Samaria will remain exactly the same as it is right now. Now, did you get that? All this debate and this tension that is going back and forth all across the world. Israel's not going to claim any more land. All they're saying is, we're no longer occupiers, or we're no longer just taking care of this land. This is going to become an integral part of the nation of Israel. Well, the Palestinians say you can't do that because you've got to go back to 67 borders and you've got to surrender half of Jerusalem to the Palestinians for their capital. Well, that's all that's at stake. Right now, Israel's already in control of all the settlements. Already. Every inch that they will declare sovereign territory is already possessed by Israel and has been for the last 53 years. But they're simply going to make it official. This article comes from Israel Hayam, which means Israel Today, and it was just published June the 24th, which is today. For the last several weeks, habitual critics of Israeli policies, dubious self-described Israel supporters, and even some longtime friends have come out against Israeli plans to annex parts of the West Bank. Here are their arguments. The Palestinian Authority will collapse. Israel will effectively kill the two-state solution and eventually become a minority within its own binational state. The peace treaty with Jordan will be rescinded. Normalization with Arab Gulf states will halt. European nations will apply sanctions on Israel. Democrats will distance themselves even further, and the Trump administration will be angered. Now, that's what all of the people that don't want this thing to happen on July the 1st, I'm talking about the declaration of sovereignty over the settlements, they're saying this is all going to happen. Now, many of today's critics specifically call Israel's upcoming move an annexation because the politically charged term falsely implies that Israel will be marching across a line and taking over property it has no rights to and does not currently control. Yet, what Israel is about to do is alter its own governing structure and formally apply Israeli law to the 400,000 Jewish citizens who already live in the strategic lands the Jewish state has controlled for decades. The land in question represents approximately half of the territory delegated to Israeli control by the now infamous Oslo Accords. That's back in 1993 when the Oslo Accords were signed with the approval of the United Nations. This territory is legally referred to as Area C. Area A and Area B are under Palestinian administrative control. Neither Israel nor the international community interferes in how Palestinians govern or don't govern those territories. At present, not a single Jew resides in these areas controlled by the Palestinians. Jews living in Area C are full tax-paying Israeli citizens. The Israeli government administers these territories and maintains the daily life of its Jewish residents. Such basic services include providing for physical safety, funding infrastructure, paving streets, supplying electricity and water, collecting garbage, and so on. With the move, Israel would demilitarize its administration of key settlement blocks by simply removing the authority of an Israel Defense Forces controlled civil administration originally set up to govern settlements. For all the criticism now being hurled at Israel's unity government, the Jewish state is not about to march across a line or border or to claim even 1 inch of new territory. It's not about to advance a single tank or soldier or place its flag anywhere that it has not already been proudly hanging for decades. As such, the move possesses no threat to the sustainability of the Palestinian Authority or to Israel's critical relations with Jordan. In exchange for American recognition and to give the administration's new Peace for Prosperity plan a chance to succeed, Israel is now set to undertake an unprecedented 4-year freeze of building in much of the key areas it already controls. According to the terms discussed between the Israeli and U.S. administrations, Jerusalem is promising to implement a freeze on the building of any new Jewish infrastructure outside the perimeter of existing settlement blocks. Okay, now we're out of time almost in this segment. But I wanted to bring this article to you because it is such an eye-opener. Everybody is painting this declaration of sovereignty of the settlements as some revolutionary thing. Israel's already controlled the areas for the last 53 years. It's really not going to change that much. That's what's going on right now. At some other time, when we have more time, we'll tell you even more. But if you're not yet a member of End of the Age Plus, why not today? Do it right now, because you're going to need this information. Things are unfolding fast. The prophecies are coming to pass very, very rapidly.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
I have left a piece of my heart in Israel and her people. We would like to thank Endtime for doing such an awesome job with our Israel tour. We marvel at your team keeping the time schedule, keeping everyone comfortable, the wonderful driver, the brilliant guide, the entire tour program, good hotel choices, and stellar food. We had the privilege to rub shoulders with Pastor Baxter, listen to his current teachings, and had some interesting questions answered so eloquently. He is wonderful. Helene from Australia.
Experience the Holy Land in the most amazing way. Join Irvin and Judy Baxter for our upcoming Israel tour. For more information, go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
Now, Israel declares sovereignty over land that she already possesses. What happens to the Palestinians? The Trump peace plan promises them a Palestinian state, which they have never had, ever. But they have to do 4 things to qualify. Number 1, they must cease the paying of $150 million plus annual pay-to-slay terror financing scheme. What's that mean? All of the Palestinians that have either killed or attacked Israel. They're in Israeli prisons. Their families are paid very handsomely and supported through the Palestinian taxing system. It's called pay to slay. If you kill Jews, then your family's taken care of forever while you are in prison. That's number one. Number two, the Palestinians are required to stop all forms of terror incitement. So you've got to stop the pay to slay, and now then you've also got to stop incitement on your television programs, in your schools, in your textbooks that encourage young Palestinian boys and girls to kill Jews. That's got to be stopped. Number three, you've got to have financial transparency, which the Palestinians do not want, because Yasser Arafat died a billionaire. Mahmoud Abbas is probably going to end up being a billionaire, because they're given millions of dollars of foreign aid, and the leaders of the Palestinians, they skim their share off the top, and everybody knows it. The Palestinians know it. So now President Trump is saying you're going to have to establish financial transparency, which the leaders do not want to do. Then you must have free and open parliamentary and presidential elections. The last presidential election among the Palestinians was in 2005 or 6, I don't recall which one. But that election was supposed to be for a 4-year term. That's when Mahmoud Abbas was elected. Well, guess what? They've never had another election since. And here we are to 2020. They still haven't had any more elections. They just don't have them. He just stays in office. So in order for the international community to embrace this new Palestinian entity, they have to have open and fair presidential and parliamentary elections. And then you also must complete the disarmament of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, which includes tens of thousands of rockets currently stockpiled for use against Israel. Now, President Trump says if you do these things during the 4-year interim period, when the Israelis are vowing not to take another inch of territory, they will not be eating into the territory that we're setting aside for a Palestinian state. If you will do these common sense democratic things, then we're going to admit you to the United Nations. We're going to recognize East Jerusalem, and we're talking about extreme East Jerusalem, as your capital. We're also going to put together a huge fund from the international community, and we're going to infuse your economy like it's never been blessed before. You're going to end up having an economy on par with the economy of the nation of Israel. So President Trump has made some big promises, peace and prosperity. He says, if you'll deliver peace, we're going to give you prosperity. I mean, they're talking about such things as building an oil pipeline from Saudi Arabia down into Gaza, building 2 oil refineries down there, which will create high-paying jobs, taking the unemployment rate from over 50% where it is now down to under 10%. And all of that is part of the promises. If you will conform and do what's right concerning Israel and your other neighbors, then we're going to help you, and you're going to be able to live happily ever after. Well, while opponents of Israel's administrative move suggest that it further harms prospects for the creation of a Palestinian state, the building freeze actually protects those prospects, even as Palestinians continuously violate their obligations under the Oslo Accords and have failed to lay even the most basic foundations for a lasting peace, let alone responsible statehood. Now, Israel is preparing to freeze building in key territories for several years The United States is willing to return the gesture by recognizing Israeli sovereignty in the lands in which it recognizes are likely to remain a part of Israel in any bilateral negotiation. America is fully prepared to recognize Israel's efforts, and it will do so specifically because its leaders believe that the move is just and will not trigger any of the potential harms being warned by the consistent critics of Israeli policies. I want to stop right there to point this out. The one brilliant move in the Trump peace plan is that whichever side conforms to the conditions, they can go ahead and reap the benefits. They don't have to wait on the other side. Up until now, every single peace effort has always allowed the Palestinians veto power. All they had to do was get up, walk out, say, we're not doing that, and now the peace effort falls apart. Not true this time, because President Trump said to Israel, if you will promise not to expand your settlements for the next 4 years, then we are going to back you and allow you to annex or to actually declare sovereignty over these settlements. We're going to give you the Jordan Valley, which gives you security from your eastern border. You'll have control all up and down the Jordan River. Well, and then they also said to the Palestinians, you do these things, we're going to back you. So, but it doesn't depend. The Israelis don't have to wait on the Palestinians. The Palestinians don't have to wait on the Israelis. So that's where we are today. And the first time Israel can take advantage of this promise is July 1, which is just ahead of us right now. Okay, now then, let's look at what else. This report says that Egypt, Jordan won't sanction Israel over sovereignty bid. Everybody said, oh, you've got a peace agreement with Jordan, you got a peace agreement with Israel, but with Egypt, but they're going to break their peace agreement. However, this article says, oh, no, they won't. Let's take a look at what it says. Israel National News. June the 23rd, just yesterday, moderate Arab states are coordinating their responses to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's upcoming sovereignty plan with Israel, according to a report by Israel Hayom newspaper. Senior Arab diplomats from several U.S.-aligned Sunni states, along with security and intelligence officials from Egypt and Jordan, said that their respective governments have been in contact with Israel in recent weeks. They've been talking to work out their responses to Prime Minister Netanyahu's plan to apply Israeli sovereignty to parts of Judea and Samaria. Publicly, America's Arab allies have urged Israel not to carry out the sovereignty plan, warning it could have serious repercussions for the region. Privately, however, notice those words, privately, however, officials from Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states say their respective governments tacitly accept Israel's sovereignty plan. Reports to this effect have fueled concerns in the Palestinian Authority that moderate Arab states who previously championed the Palestinian cause are now unwilling to intervene on the Palestinians' behalf to try to block the sovereignty plan. They're not willing to do that anymore. They're going to let it go through. Palestinian Authority Foreign Affairs Chief Riyad al-Maliki lamented that Arab leaders had refused to deny these reports. We reached out through official and unofficial channels to get responses and clarifications in this matter. Yet, till now, we haven't gotten any response or unequivocal denial to these reports. said al-Maliki in an interview with Voice of Palestine. According to the Israel Hayom report, a senior Egyptian official said al-Maliki's fears are justified, claiming that Egypt will do nothing more than issue a symbolic condemnation of the sovereignty plan, adding that Jordan will likely do the same. Now, those are the two powers most in question, because Egypt's along the southern border of Israel, and Jordan is all along the eastern border of Israel. The Egyptian official also said that Egypt has succeeded in convincing senior Jordanian security officials to recommend to King Abdullah II that he take no measures in response to the sovereignty plan, limiting his response to a symbolic condemnation. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we sit. We're on the bubble today. 1 week from today, Israel can take a vote in the Knesset, and if they vote to annex or to declare sovereignty over all the settlements, there's a map that's been worked on. It's probably done right now. I haven't read. But they probably have this map at the White House today during their discussions. And this map shows exactly where the borders will be, exactly where the settlements will be, how everything's going to be arranged. I'm telling you, we're on the bubble today. And all Israel's got to do is have a vote in the Knesset July the 1st or whenever they choose to have it, and they can declare sovereignty over all of these areas that the international community has said they cannot do it. Remember Obama's infamous Resolution 2334 that he allowed to pass in the United Nations back on December the 23rd of 2016? It said Israel's presence in the West Bank is a flagrant violation of international law, including Israel's presence in East Jerusalem. Well, guess what? All that is now being flipped on its head. And it's so fitting that the news came out just today that Michael Flynn has now been totally released, and he now has his freedom. What was Flynn's problem? Well, just before they passed that resolution, he was on the phone with the Russian ambassador trying to get Russia to veto the resolution, trying to protect Israel. But the Trump administration was not in power. They did not get that done. But that's the reason they were aiming for Michael Flynn, was because he was working against their infamous anti-Israeli resolution.
Does the book of Revelation frighten you? Do its symbols confuse you? For centuries, the book of Revelation has been misunderstood and misinterpreted. In Revelation, the unveiling of Jesus Christ, Volume 1, Irvin Baxter unlocks the mystery of the book of Revelation with in-depth analysis and commentary like you've never heard before. This 10-part definitive DVD series and 268-page comprehensive commentary book covers the first 12 chapters of the book of Revelation, featuring on-location photography, classic artwork, and symbolic illustrations. You'll walk away with complete understanding and peace about the events happening during the final years on Earth. These comprehensive study tools, available for $299, will deepen your biblical understanding as you dig into the original intent of the book, answering the mysterious prophecies and symbols of the book of Revelation. Don't miss this special offer. Call now, 1-800-END-TIME, or go to endtime.com to order. Call or go online now to get this comprehensive Bible study.
Well, yes, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall at the White House for the last 3 days. I would love to have listened in on all of the conversations. And here they are. Now, remember, God said, I'm going to give your descendants after you, Abraham, this land. They have been banished from this land for 2,000 years, from 70 A.D. until the rebirth of Israel in 1948. But they didn't get all their land back. They did not get all the promised land back. They're getting ready to get another big chunk of it back, maybe next week, that soon. So we are in prophetic times. But the same time they do that, an area is going to be reserved for a Palestinian state with settlements all in the Palestinian state, fulfilling the prophecy of Jesus in Matthew 24, that the Jews in Judea, 3.5 years into the final 7 years, will have to run for their lives or be slaughtered. So we are living in prophetic territory right now. I want to get a few phone calls in. Let's go right now, first of all, to Jim in the truck. Hello, Jim.
Praise the Lord, Irvin, sir. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fabulous. Thank you.
I'm in a pretty bad downpour down here in Florida. And what I wanted to talk about is just the Jewish people, since that 4,000 years ago when God gave Abraham that land, they have like a cycle they've gone through where they built up their high places and then they tore them down. And it's just amazing that we're looking at this in our fallen nature. It goes all the way back to Adam and Eve, that they're going to actually do this thinking that they appeasing or... And the other thing I wanted to talk about and ask you why, and what do you think is, now that Benny Gantz with the Likud party and, the Blue and White party and Benjamin Netanyahu with the Likud party, they got this union going on, which has never happened in history. It's really amazing stuff, but who do you think is to really blame for this? And they're trying to do the right thing, and if you look from heaven, the heavens outside the earth at us as little, like, ants, and it just baffles me that, God knows the end from the beginning, and yet here we are seeing these things happen for such a time as this. It's really exciting, but now this will be a judgment on Israel, correct?
Yeah, Jim, let me break it on you because you're asking an important question here, and our time is limited, so let me respond to your question as far as what is going on. Netanyahu is the driving force behind the annexing of the settlements. Back in 2009, he made a speech before Bar Ilan University, and he said, we know that this little land is home to two people, and we're going to have to share it. We're going to have to make painful compromises. And what he meant was, we're going to have to create a Palestinian state. People have never forgotten that endorsement. Well, now Netanyahu is on the brink of delivering on that endorsement because Netanyahu had his finger in the crafting of the peace plan. He was cooperating all the way with Jared Kushner, with Jason Greenblatt, and with President Trump. And he put this whole plan together. He, in his pragmatism, thought that this was the way to finally get a peace deal between the Palestinians and the Israelis. So he's the driving force behind all this. It appears that Benny Gantz is with him. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like to me they're getting ready to do this deal. Now, there's a lot of people suggesting, just do a symbolic annexation of just a small amount, do this, do that. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I cannot tell you for sure. I know for sure what's ultimately going to happen. Israel is going to adapt the sovereignty over these settlements, and also there is going to be a Palestinian state. I know that from the Bible. Whether that happens this month or next month or even this year, I cannot tell you for sure. But it certainly, it looks like it's getting ready to happen right now. Thanks a lot for your call, Jim. Got to let you go. Let's go now to Sean from right here in Texas. Hello, Sean.
Hey, Baxter.
Yeah, what's on your mind?
A long time ago, your caller had called in and asked about Daniel 12, 11, and 12.
Yes.
And it's from the time of the daily sacrifices are taken away, there should be 1,290 days. And then it says, blessed is he who waits and comes 1,335 days. Were you ever able to figure out the difference?
Well, to tell you that I have absolute proof, I cannot. But my opinion is that 45-day period will be the time during which the Battle of Armageddon is fought, that the wrath of God is poured out upon his enemies, and that will also be the transition period, which at the end of it, Satan will be bound for the next 1,000 years. We will crown Jesus Christ King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So when it says, blessed is he that cometh to the 1,335th day, that means the battle of Armageddon is over. That means the wrath of God is over. And that means we've crowned Jesus Christ King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's what I think it is.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. In essence, that Mark says, in those days after the tribulation, you see the wrath of God, which is the day of the Lord. And I was thinking, in essence, God's wrath was 45 days.
Well, that's what it looks like. And again, to be able to nail it down exactly, we may not be able to do that. But there is a 45-day gap between the 1,290 days and the 1,335th day. It's going to be really interesting. Of course, I'm hoping sometime during that 45-day period that all of a sudden I feel a spatial surge of spirituality hit me, and I'm changed from mortal to immortality, and my feet leave the ground, and I rise to meet the Lord in the air. The rapture is going to happen sometime during that time period as well.
Well, I think it happens at the very end, during the seventh vial, during the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord would be the last day of God's wrath, it appears.
It certainly does look that way. Thanks a lot, Sean. Appreciate the phone call. Let's go now to Darlene calling from Oklahoma. Hello, Darlene.
Hi, Irvin. Okay, you're almost out of time. So my question is kind of in two parts. So if you could kind of like some people that are just tuning in, that July 1st where they may sign the peace agreement, what that means biblically, that's when we're like 3.5 years from tribulation, or when the Antichrist sits in the temple of God and declares he's God, and a lot of people are going to believe it because he's going to, who don't know, haven't been reading the Bible and know the Lord, and pull fire down from heaven. And I'm wondering, is that like the Jews going to say, no, you're not, and they're going to rebel, and that's what's going to cause the slaughter? And kind of like, I've invited a few people to watch your show and kind of figure out, what's going on and what that July 1st signing of the peace agreement.
Yeah, let me give a quick summary, Darlene, because you've asked a fair question. If they do, in fact, annex these territories, that could well trigger the fulfillment of the prophecy that starts the final 7 years. Now, not only does there have to be an annexation, the Temple Mount will be declared an open place where all people can worship. That's another thing we'll know, that the final 7 years has begun. But there will be many things that will tell us, and in order for us to define that, it's hard to do in a 2-minute bite here. But nevertheless, once the peace agreement is signed between the Palestinians and Israelis, that starts the final 7 years. During the first 3.5 years, the Jews will build their temple on the Temple Mount, because by that time, the Temple Mount will be under a sharing arrangement between Jew and Gentile. And then halfway through, the Antichrist will be revealed, and that will launch the event called the Great Tribulation, which lasts for the final 3.5 years. And then at the end of the final 3.5 years, the Battle of Armageddon will take place. The international community will come down against Jerusalem to try to destroy the Jewish people. Anti-Semitism is not going to go away. They're going to try to destroy the Jewish people. But when it looks like Israel's on the brink of defeat and annihilation, that's when Jesus Christ himself will come from heaven, and he will come and fight for the Jewish people. He then will destroy the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet, and we will crown him King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's a really, really quick summary of exactly how everything's going to come down, Darlene. And for all of you out there that maybe you want to know more, we have our Jerusalem Prophecy College. I recommend this. I cannot recommend anything to you better. It consists of 11 semesters, 155 lessons. You can enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College, and you will understand everything we're talking about today in depth. If you're interested, go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com and then register and enroll in your first course. Get started, because you can know what's coming before it ever happens. It's all right there in the Jerusalem Prophecy College course. So I would really encourage you to do that. Thank you very much, Darlene. Let's go now Let's go to Ryan calling from Texas. Hello, Ryan.
How's it going?
It's going wonderful.
Hello?
Thank you.
So I'm very up to date and on point with what you guys are saying, like as far as the annexation and everything. My question to you would be, if this peace agreement is signed, I mean, it talks about the Antichrist being the one to confirm the covenant that kicks off the final 7 years. It's like, I've been doing research, like, I'm pretty sure you know who Andreas Bummel is in the international community. It's like, where are we at as far as, because I'm guessing you would agree that there is a confluence of events going on in the world. So I'd like to get your perspective or input on that.
Ryan, are you saying there's conflict going on in the world right now? I can't believe you would say that.
No, I'm saying...
I'm just joking with you. I'm joking with you. The world is full of conflict right now. But your question is, the Bible says that the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many for 7 years. So a lot of people are questioning if that is true, and if the Trump peace plan is the peace plan that will trigger the final 7 years. Why does that then not make Donald Trump the Antichrist?
Well, no, me personally, I don't think Trump is the Antichrist. I completely agree with you and Dave about supporting Trump. I mean, my personal honest opinion is that Emmanuel Macron is the Antichrist because he has veto power and his name pretty much declares himself to be God. But it's like, I know the whole international community has to be on board or against the plan that Trump's proposed. So,
well, the Bible says, Ryan, that he will confirm the covenant with many. That word many is key. It appears that he, like for instance, I read the article today on the program, that Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, many of the Sunni countries are willing to buy into the Trump peace plan. That appears to be the many. Trump may end up winning the European Union over. He may end up winning the United Nations over because they're discussing all this at the United Nations this week. So
and then they have the meeting in September too.
Well, they do, but there's a problem with that because of the coronavirus. They're not coming to New York this year. They're having all their meetings virtual. So I don't know how all that is going to come down, except the important thing for us to understand is that there is going to be this agreement, and it will appear that most people will sign into it. One of the ones signing into it will be the Antichrist. We do not yet know who he is, but we will know before long. Ryan, I got to let you go. I'm sorry, but we're totally out of time. Those of you yet on the screen, I do apologize. We just simply could not get it all in. But I do want to say to all of you out there, whatever you do, if you've not yet enrolled in the Jerusalem Prophecy College, I'm pounding the table right now. I'm telling you, get enrolled. Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com and register, enroll, and get going, and do it fast. We're about out of time. God bless you all, and we'll see you tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.